everybody. So we are here for our next episode of Chicks on Flicks, and we were going to do Bang the Drums slowly, but we've had a little bit of a hard time procuring it, and so we will do that at a future date. And we decided to kind of last minute to do Breaking Away, which was the next up in the series of 33 films that will restore your faith in humanity from Roger Ebert. And my friend Christine is here with me.
Hey.
Yeah, and so sorry about that change, but we will cover it eventually. It's not in print anymore, so I had to buy it used, and you can't stream it anywhere or anything, so we just had a hard time finding it. So anyway, so we're going. Well, we get to talk about Breaking Away, which is I think, a really excellent film. This movie was made in 1979, and it did very well. It won an Oscar for Best Screenplay.
Wow, I have no idea.
Yeah, and it was nominated for Best Picture. It's one of my father's not really a movie guy that much. He watches maybe 2 a year, and never at the theater. He never goes to the theater. And this is one of his favorite movies. It is Breaking Away. He's a avid cyclist, and so that's part of it, I think. But especially when he was younger, he was, and so and I think it's just genuinely a good movie. I really enjoy it. It's kind of fun for me because I served my mission in Bloomington.
Oh,
and yeah, for a time, which is fun. And so I recognize, even though obviously it's the 70s, so it's going to be quite different, but that was sort of fun. And Indiana is just like the hotbed of sports movies, like great sports movies. You have Rudy, and you have Hoosiers, and there's a bunch more that are all set in Indiana. So it's kind of funny. A lot of movies are actually set in Indiana randomly. It's like I think it's like a popular kind of, if they want to have like Midwestern values kind of thing, or whatever, like set it in Indiana.
For sure.
Like Close Encounters of the Third Kind is set there. I mean, there's just a ton. So Iowa gets the cold shoulder, I guess, for Indiana. But anyway, so yeah, I watched it again this morning, and I really enjoyed it again. I think it has really engaging characters. I think it's characters that you can really relate to. I think the script is very solid. I don't think it feels dated like certain films might feel dated. I think this film would be a great film to actually do a remake of, because I think that it would be because to me the perfect kind of remakes are films that not that many people are that aware of, but that are really good. And so you can, as opposed to a movie that everyone knows about and everyone sees as a classic, that's stupid to remake. But these films, so you can, it's like a win-win situation. You get hopefully a good new movie, plus people all of a sudden are aware of this other good movie. And so that I think it would actually do pretty well in a modern kind of retelling. I think it's pretty timeless themes of growing up and deciding what you want to do in your life, and your friends sort of moving on, and love, and sort of the rockiness of love, and all of that kind of stuff when you're in that age. And sports, obviously there's a little bit of sort of a sports story, which are timeless. And so yeah, I think you could make it work for a modern retelling, but I really enjoyed it. So what did you think of it?
I have some pretty mixed feelings. There were some things that I loved that I thought were just awesome, but there were a couple things that were disturbing to me and alarming to me that I felt it was really, they did not age well, and that they were never resolved. They weren't issues at all in the movie. But I wouldn't say it ruined it. I feel like it's just kind of like it's a product of its time type of thing, and we'll go more into that.
Sure.
We'll kind of tackle the things one by one. Overall, I think it is a good movie. I think I'd like to see it again. I don't have the benefit of like nostalgia or like you mentioned that this is one of your dad's favorite movies, and so you get to kind of come at the movie with that in mind. And I'm very easily swayed by other people's opinions. And so like when people really love a movie, I want to love it too, you know, like I just have to be able to make sense of it.
Sure.
So with this one, like I'm still kind of rolling it around in my head. There were a couple of moments I thought that were really, really good. So.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. So it's about these boys that are played by Dennis Christopher, Dennis Quaid, Daniel Stern, Jackie Earle Haley.
To life, you know, that moment where suddenly here's your opportunity and you're just too afraid of failure, you know? And he was like, no, I don't want to go out there. He just chickens out. I thought it was so great.
Yeah, that was a really like human kind of moment. That's true. I agree. That was really good. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a sense of envy and a sense of fear and a sense of with him and his character. And so what did you think of sort of Dave and his dad in particular? At least at the beginning, like this sort of back and forth between them about Italy.
Oh my gosh. I just hated Dave's dad. I mean, like, I think that he was well acted because he was convincing. But this to me is, what I'm about to say is the thing that I was just like, I don't feel better about humanity. I just feel sorry for women everywhere who have ever had to put up with this kind of indentured servitude. So for me, the dad and his son, I thought the dad was particularly homophobic. I thought the whole movie kind of had a lot of homophobic language. I think, you know, for me, I'm like, okay, I can see it in context, but for somebody who's more sensitive to things like that, where if that kind of language guts you, then I wouldn't recommend it to that person. The dad, I just felt like he was just, you know, he was just like, what is this fruity music? And oh, my son is shaving his legs. And I felt like if you had that now, in a movie now, by the end of the movie, you'd be able to address why this is problematic, like why the dad's saying things like this is not okay. But I feel like in 1979, it was just culturally acceptable to be like, oh, it's so weird, my son is shaving his legs, like to freak out about stuff like that. And so the fact that some of that stuff didn't get addressed, that I felt like that kind of gave it this normalcy that I didn't appreciate.
Okay. I felt like they did address at least some of it with the conversation that they have, where they talk about the fact that he built the campus. He'd been a part, and he was so proud of that, but he felt very insecure. He never liked to go on there because he felt embarrassed, and he felt so I felt like you did get a sense of sort of this is where all this insecurity is coming from in that conversation between them.
Oh yeah. I mean, his dad is outrageously insecure and then inflicts that on everyone. I don't know. It didn't make me feel better.
Really?
It just made me feel like, okay, yeah, like you have a reason for what you did, but that doesn't make what you did right. And he never, the thing is like, the father-son relationship was less disturbing to me than the husband and wife relationship. She was literally just a slave the whole movie. Almost every single scene, she's cooking or cleaning. It shows her cleaning, and she's tired and she's unhappy. And then she cooks him this dinner where she tries to do something fun and interesting. And he's like, what is this? Yeah, I don't want a zucchini. You know, and he like throws a fit about it and everything. He's just so critical, totally ungrateful. I just was so angry at him. And I was like, this poor woman, where she pulls out the passport, and it's supposed to be heartwarming, but it just makes me think like, run away, like leave him. You have one life. Like get out of here. I was so frustrated. She's like, and someday I'm going to pull out this passport and just someone can see I have a passport. And I was like, oh, you poor battered woman. This is horrendous. And just for the majority of history, you know, just it just brought out like the feminist in me. I was like, I'm so mad at it. And then it's like, this is fixed by her like putting flowers in her hair and going to bed with him, and they have this like weird romantic moment where he takes like the pen protector out of his pocket. I don't know. And then she gets pregnant. I'm like, no, this is worse, not better. So I was like, she's stuck for life. I just felt so bad for her. And like, nothing ever got better for her. Nothing ever will get better for her. And I felt like the movie really perpetuated this idea that would have been very normal in 1979, that like, this is okay and this is normal. And like, your husband's just a little cranky sometimes. You just got to like love him anyway. And I'm just like, no, one life. You got one life. Get out of there. So that to me was the one thing where I was like, oh, I can't watch it. This is just so sad. And she never even confronts him. She's never like, do you notice what I do around here? Do you notice? Like, you're always coming in here talking about how hard you work and how tired and miserable you are. Like, did you ever think to say thank you? Oh, anyway, I'm going to get off this topic.
No, you're fine. It's all right.
How I feel.
So for me, I would say, I guess my one defense about that is I do feel like she kept doing things that she knew that she kept doing things that she wanted to do. I mean, she didn't stop having the Italian meal because he was grumpy. Like, I felt like through the course of the whole movie, she kept doing, she kept supporting her son. She did, whether he had a problem with it, she kept, I didn't see her as beaten down as you did.
Well, I think she certainly did, and she still had that glimmer of spirit, but it's kind of like you can still have a glimmer of spirit while a ball and chain is.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see it as stark as you did. I think that he's an insecure guy, but I definitely didn't see it as harsh as you did. So I felt like she still was somewhat independent as far as she kept doing things that she knew that she wanted to do, and that she kept. I mean, she's not in the movie that much, so it's a little bit hard, but I don't know. I felt like I didn't have those issues that you had. I'll just say I didn't. I didn't have that. It didn't bother me like that. And I felt like that moment with them at the school where they have this conversation was a really, really lovely moment between the two of them. And that to me did a lot for sort of explaining his character and who he was and helping their relationship. Just felt like he was more just sort of aggravated rather than like hateful, I guess. I didn't take it as harsh, I guess, as you saw, which is totally valid. I looked at it as more just like, almost more like a, I don't know, like a Dennis the Menace kind of thing. Like, just sort of aggravated versus like, I hate my son kind of a thing.
Well, I didn't see him as hateful. No, I wouldn't see him as hateful. Just entitled.
So I thought I'd read a little bit of Roger's thoughts on this film. He says that Breaking Away is a movie to embrace. It's about people who are complicated but decent, who are optimists but see things realistically, who are fundamentally comic characters but have three full dimensions. It's about middle America we rarely see in the movies, yes, but it's not corny and it doesn't condescend. Movies like this are hardly ever made at all. When they're made this well, they're precious cinematic miracles. So that's sort of his thought. And I do think that that it does a good job of keeping these characters sort of feeling real while still being funny. And that's hard to do. It's very hard to write a comedy that doesn't start to feel like comedy, where the jokes are sort of taking over the characters. And sometimes those can be amazing. Like, I love Monty Python, and I love, that's all about the jokes, and that's great. But to do a comedy that still sort of feels like real people is, I think, hard. And I think they do a good job with this. And so I think it's an interesting point. And that he makes. And so I guess, what did you think about this whole thing about Dave pretending to be Enrico, the college student, for the girl? Is that funny at all to you?
I didn't realize the movie was a comedy. I don't think I laughed at any point during this movie, which is fine. I loved the scene where he serenades Katerina.
Yeah, it's just really cute.
It's really, really cute. But
yeah, I guess I think stuff like the zini scene I think that's actually funny. But if you took it as being sort of, if you took it differently, that's cool. But But yeah, and just his whole like charade, I actually think it's kind of funny that
Oh
he's
wow, that's
doing, and
funny.
he's getting like increasingly more awkward and uncomfortable,
Oh, that's so
and
funny.
and I think a lot of the dialogue is actually quite funny. So yeah, that's an interesting thing how people can take things, and so yeah, it's so ridiculous. This girl is very silly, but I guess fools in love. What are you gonna do? Sorry.
I'm like, oh, I'm seriously, my mind just got blown. I'm like, wait, that was supposed to be funny. I literally just saw a drama. I don't know. Maybe this is one of those times where like if you like, you kind of have to be married where like you do this all the time. And like, I'm not married to any, but my husband is nothing like that guy. My husband cooks just as much as I do, but like, if I ever got that kind of attitude for something that I baked, like I wouldn't be married to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so sad. It was so sad.
Fair enough. Okay. So once we get to the actual, well, first of all, we do get to see where Dave meets the Italian team, and he realizes that they're cheating. And so he takes down all the posters. He's very, very disheartened, very frustrated, and I don't know. Did you think I have any thoughts about that?
I loved it. I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I think that was one of the best parts of the movie, and I thought it was so interesting too. How the thing he said to his dad was, "Everybody cheats," and I didn't really take it as any sort of statement against like Italians. It was just him kind of saying like, people are people wherever you go. And I thought there was a lot of in the beginning there was this attitude that like, if you could just get out, if you could just get away, then it won't be like this. And so Italy was this magical fantasy land, where everything was wonderful and everybody was so awesome. And then he meets these Italians and he's like, oh wait, they're just people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was
I loved it.
definitely, that you meet your heroes and how that can be really disappointing sometimes.
Yeah,
when
but
you
I thought
realize.
it was so fun for his character development though, because you can kind of see him when he lets go of other people being his heroes, he gets to be his own hero. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
after that scene that I think it's after that scene that the guys come back for the refund on the car, and
Mm-hmm.
he insists that they give a refund because it's like, well, if the Italian guys aren't going to be this hero, then I can at least do the right thing. And I love that he doesn't break so much that he decides to become a cheater himself. If anything, it
That's
motivates
true.
him to become even more of a moral person, which I thought was just awesome.
Right. It kind of it's just depressing for him. He wants to sort of give up cycling a little bit. But I love it at the end. He's all about the Tour de France and France. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, it was really cute.
And when you're a teenager, you do get kind of obsessed about stuff like that. You do get,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it would be aggravating for parents, to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of hearing about this, or hearing about whatever it is that my kids are super, at least certain personalities, that you would just be like, I know my sister was super into Japan. It was like everything Japan, 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 Japan. And I could think that would be kind of aggravating. And so I don't know, I relate to that because I'm a very intense person. Like I'll be super into one thing
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and then like it's amazing in a way that I've maintained. Next year it'll be 10 years since I started my blog, which my not my movie blog but my personal blog, and it's kind of amazing that I've kept it that intense all these years. Like 10 years, that's a long time,
That is a long
because
time.
I do tend to burn very bright. I mean, I still always like it. I never like completely get off, but as far as like being super impassioned about things, especially when I was younger, then it would burn really bright for a while, and I love it. You got to try this. You got to, and it totally makes sense that this is my dad's favorite movie. Not only the cycling, but also, first of all, his father is a huge curmudgeon, to put it mildly. Very, very, very challenging person. And oh, and my dad would probably love to have had a moment like they did it on the campus,
Mm-hmm.
where his father shared something authentic about him and his
Mm-hmm.
life. And And that probably never actually happened, sadly.
Mhm.
But anyway, and so it makes sense. But also my dad is very passionate about things, like even like little things, like he will like get a new flavor of yogurt that he likes and be like, you got to try this. This is so great. Like this is the best thing ever. You're like, oh yeah, okay. Or whatever it might be that he's really excited about. He will like call all his friends and he will you want to tell everybody about this great new book he found or this diet that he's on or this whatever it is. So so I think that Dave could probably very heavily relate to my dad.
For
Very
sure.
much,
Well, I
so.
can see a lot of people resonating with that dad character,
Yeah.
like I think it is familiar for a lot of people, not maybe even more so for like, your dad's generation, my dad's generation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's true. So what did you think about this sort of division that exists in the town between the college, the educated people, and the cutters?
Oh, it felt so real.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say that word like over and over and over with this movie, because I think that was kind of one of the, golden points of the movie was its realism. But I would suspect that people who live in college towns like that would really, they'd say, yeah, like there's a dynamic here for sure. That there'd,
like I've talked to people who you went to BYU, correct?
BYUI,
No?
yeah.
Oh, BYU. Well, I've talked to a bunch of people that went to Provo High, and how I think they experience a little bit of sort of this environment, with being a high school student in this like predominantly college town, that there is this sort of competition and this sort of thing going on that you see.
Oh,
Yeah. So I think it exists. And also, but I think there's also sort of a class thing going on here that you have these laborers, these people that are uneducated or viewed as uneducated because they don't have a college degree. And they're working in the quarry, and the people that are educated, and there's sort of this disdain, this condescension. And I think you can still see that now. I mean, not to get into politics and stuff, but that is one of the things that Donald Trump was able to tap into, was this anxiety on the part of this sort of working class kind of group that felt sort of ostracized and felt sort of looked down on. And he was able to kind of talk to them. And so I think it's still something that still totally exists and is a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was really interesting in the scene where, they all get in trouble for the big fight at the bowling alley. And I think it's the dean or something says a line like, these other guys that you call cutters, like they're the ones who are here. They're the ones who will still be here. Y'all are going to be here for 4 years.
Right.
And he's like, you're just passing through. I thought that was kind of cool that they would have this person in a position of authority saying this. And recognizing that, I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and it is kind of ironic that, again, going back to that scene between the dad and Dave at the school, is that they're the ones that built the school. Yeah. They're the ones, that they think they're so much better. The school wouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
Without them. So, that's sort of interesting how that happens. And so anyway, we get to the final race with Dave is going to do the whole race, is going to take on the whole team. But he ends up he's way ahead. And he ends up getting hit by one of the other teams, and his ankle is bleeding. And so that's when, as you were saying, Butcher, I think it is, has to do a couple laps to help Dave. And then finally, they end up taping his foot onto the bike so that he can finish. And it is really, I think, quite a triumphant moment for them and for him. Because he's been so devastated, disappointed by the Italians, and for them to sort of come out on top over the college students as a group of friends, all of that is really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and I think it's filmed really well, and so it's just, and the music and just everything is really engrossing.
I did like a lot of the cinematography, but some of the editing.
Mm-hmm.
I do not normally notice editing, but I thought the
Mm-hmm.
editing in this was actually quite poor.
Oh, okay.
And there were some things where I was like, why are we looking at this? Or it would cut very abruptly. Like there were some scenes where a character was about to speak again, and they'd be like, and then it would cut, and I was like, what? Like this is like a YouTube video, where like someone's just chopping things up. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
And there was one scene that stood out where it was right at the end when they win and they're all celebrating, and Cyril is like looking around, and he's kind of looking at the fact that like no one's hugging him. Like Mike's hugging the police officer, and Moocher's hugging Nancy, and the son is hugging everybody, and Dad, I don't know. I mean, like he's the champ, and they like the camera just stays on Cyril for like he's just like looking around. I was like, what this would not have caught my attention if you just hadn't centered him in the camera. I don't know why they did that.
Interesting.
I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, that's probably. I'm sure that's true. I do love at the end when you see the dad riding a bike at the end, and so I really do see growth in his character. I just don't think it's as bad as you do, but it's totally cool. That's why you have these discussions. And one of the interesting thing I just saw is that Barbara Barry, who played the mom, she got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her role. Isn't that interesting?
That's why I felt so much for her. Because she was conveying so much. She didn't have a lot of lines, but yeah. Well, and I do think there definitely, I mean, I'm not going to say there wasn't a change with the dad at the end, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like he even renames his car lot, and it's Cutter's used cars,
Yeah.
And so he's obviously taken this on and he's excited now. I think maybe I just would have liked to see things more directly addressed. I think that's it. Like, I think that, they did end in a pretty good place, but I don't, to me, if I don't see the characters really talk it out, or like the wife confront the husband, I just assume that we're sweeping it under the rug because we're in a good mood now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I think just personally with like my communication style, I just really detest doing that. And so if I think that's what's happened in a movie, then I'll read it that way. But I think if I was a little more patient with it, I would just assume that those conversations were happening in the background, and then I could be happier with the dad's character growth.
I think the mother's role in this story, in this movie, is to be really supportive of her son. I think that sort of, as opposed to sort of the marriage dynamic, it's not really delved into, you're right. But I think that's sort of her sort of job, is that she continually is the one who is very supportive of, even as wacky as it gets, she's supportive. And so that's kind of her sort of spot to play in this story. But yeah, I mean, I guess they could have taken a moment to show some kind of reconciliation between them. I get that. And it's a valid point. And so yeah, that's kind of the movie. I really do like the music too. I think the music's really effective in sort of drawing you into these cycling, because cycling can be really boring. It can be a really boring sport. And but I think they make it engaging. They make it as exciting as you could make cycling. Because I love swimming, and swimming is not that exciting either to watch, or these individual sports just aren't quite, compared to basketball or baseball or something like that. Team sports have more of a cinematic quality to them. That's why you see them more often. That's why there's hardly any movies about the Olympics, because most of them are individual sports. There's Miracle, and there's The Cutting Edge, and Cool Runnings. There's a few, but there's really not that many movies about the Chariots of Fire. And Chariots of Fire we're going to talk about that, I think, coming up. But it also makes running interesting, so which is hard, even harder probably than cycling. If you were to say between like a 1 to 10, what rating would you give it?
Initially give it an 8.
Really?
But because it just but because it just kind of left me hanging, like I think I'd knock it down to a 7. But I didn't think it was a bad movie.
Oh,
so
I thought you were going to say like a 4.
No, well, I know how to criticize things that I like, like it doesn't ruin everything for me. And I do see things in context.
Sure.
So if anything, this just depressed me more about the 1970s than this movie in particular, like it just reminds me of things that feel uncomfortable to me. But that doesn't mean that like the movie is,
I think if they did remake it, they could make that a little more nuanced, make that a little bit better. I think they were going for something that was supposed to be sort of funny and a little bit over, a little bit silly I think it's funny to be upset about zucchini, but obviously if or anything, all the eenies, we can't have any eenies.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny to me, but
I just wanted to punch him.
If it doesn't make you laugh, then that's it. But no, I think that's fair to sort of look at the time and look at and I do think this would be I've said it a couple times, but I think this would be a really good movie to remake. If you got a good writer, I think you could let people know about this film and also, make some of those things a little bit better. But I would honestly, I mean, going into this, I have to admit, I was thinking, I don't know, like I was thinking like a 9 out of 10 because I really love it. But you have brought up some really good points. I don't know. I guess I'll say 8.5. 8.5.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
It's really good. And
it's worth watching.
Yeah. So so I see why it was something that my dad particularly loved. So it's always fun. So we'll try. Next week is there's sort of holidays, things going on next week. So we will do our best to make it work next week. But if we end up having 2 weeks, don't kill us. But we will do our best, and we will announce on the Twitter. Don't forget to follow us at Chicks on Flick. We will announce what we are covering next week because it might be Bang the Drum Slowly, it might be something else. So we will let you know. And thanks so much for joining me to talk about this movie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
It's fun. So where can people find you?
So people can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/CTylerVision, and that's the letter C. And then actually right now, a friend and I are just finishing up a Instagram challenge where people can take pictures according to a prompt list that we have. And we are doing a ton, like these big old prize boxes for it. It's going to be so cool. We've got signed books by authors. It's all sci-fi themed this month. And if people can't jump in on time this month, and you only have to do one photo with the prompt once to join in, they can join in next month. And next month is going to be Uruk High July. And it's fantasy. Everything's going to be fantasy the next month. So they can find that at C Tyler Books on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
cool. I got to check that out. I got to enter. That sounds fun. So yeah, you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on social media and 54 Disney Reviews. I will be seeing the Despicable Me 3 movie tomorrow. Yay. And we'll be giving my review sometime this weekend. And we have an episode of His Picks, Her Picks coming up on Saturday, which I'm really looking forward to. We are looking at we're doing superheroes since we kind of had 2 in a short period of time. Well, 3 if you include Captain Underpants. And we are going to be looking at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990 and the Hellboy movie, first Hellboy movie. So that is going to be a lot of fun. So you want to check out that. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And we will be excited to talk again soon.
All right. Bye.